Hi, I'm Hilary Halstead Scott, and I'm here in the Halstead Teaching Studio with Erica Stice, our studio coordinator.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Hi. So today we are going to take you through the basic setup to get started soldering. So whether you're doing this at your kitchen table or you have a little craft and hobby space, we're going to kind of take you through what you need to get started and how to do this on a budget and safely, right?
Yes.
Right.
It's really important because a lot of people ask this question a lot about how to get started, and their fear is damaging their stuff, and this will kind of show you what you need to lay out and what you'll need.
Okay, so let's talk about safety first, right? Because obviously if you're soldering, you're using fire, you have a lot of heat. So you want to think about protecting your furniture and also your body, right? So
right.
Let's talk about how to get started in the safety sense.
Okay, so first you want to protect your tabletop. So a tile works really well for protecting your tabletop, and we have 18-inch by 18-inch tile here, and it works really well to protect your wood or anything else on your table.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So I think that's the number one. Protect your table.
Protect your table. It's really easy to put down a hot torch or a hot pair of tweezers or tongs when you're really focused on what you're doing. And you can really burn a wood table very easily.
Yeah, and I think that the 18-inch, the size is so large that you have plenty of room on that tile to just place everything down safely.
Yeah, that's a great tip. So another thing that's available in the soldering kit that we sell is a tripod like this. And if you're using a tripod, you're doing your soldering up here on top of the tripod, it keeps the heat away from your surface, right?
Yeah.
So that can help too. If you maybe don't have access to a tile and you're using this kit, a tripod really helps to keep that heat up. And then maybe you could just keep like a ceramic plate or something to set your tools on off to the side.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. So let's kind of go through some of the other things in a kit or some of the tools you need just to really get started.
Yeah.
So why don't you take us through kind of this list of items on the table?
Okay, so we have a best-selling kit, X299, which has been a bestseller for years, ever since we've carried it. And this is a great tip to get started with your soldering. It comes with a magnesia block, which is soft, so you can actually put your jewelry into it, or you can pin it to hold onto your jewelry. It comes with a big, tall, I think 12-inch tripod.
Take this apart just so you can see there's like a mesh screen that goes on top of that tripod. That's removable.
Yeah, and you can adjust it too. So if you want to just hit a corner of it, you can just slide it over to the side as long as you're carefully balanced out correctly.
Right, so these are materials that are safe to apply a soldering torch to, right? So this is the surface you would actually put your item to be soldered on. You could have your magnesia block down here directly on the tile and have your jewelry piece on it, or you could solder directly on this mesh as well. You don't have to have the magnesia block on the mesh. Now, what's the issue with using a tripod like this, though, when you're learning to solder?
Well, I would be really careful of soldering. Don't put your piece above this huge round part of the tripod because it actually will draw the heat away. So you want to make sure your piece is off to the side or in the center because it is a large center. So as long as your piece is resting in the center, that'll work too.
Right. So when you're soldering, you want to get your flame really close to the object you're trying to solder. Yep. So, if you have it in the middle of your screen, you'll want to get your torch way up underneath here so you're applying the heat very closely to your item. So don't be shy. You can't solder from way back here. You got to get in there.
No, you have to get in there. And remember, you have to heat up your metal because the metal is what actually has the solder flow.
That's right. Okay. So what are some of the other tools? I'm going to move this out of the way just so you can see a little bit better.
So our kit also comes with a micro torch, which is a great tiny little flame. It's perfect for jump rings, bails, attaching them to pendants, chain finishing. It's a nice little torch, and it has an adjustable flame, which is really nice.
So I love these portable torches because, first of all, you could take them anywhere, but they're not so intimidating as like a tank setup, right?
No, it's not.
So if you're just learning, this is a great way to kind of build your confidence, learn the fundamentals of soldering without kind of tackling all of the larger storage and safety issues of tanks of fuel.
Yeah, and it's self-igniting, which is nice. You don't need a lighter or anything to get it started, and you just simply refill the bottom of it. And it also has a child safety lock, which is the best thing.
Cool. So where do you get fuel for a torch like this, Erica?
You just purchase a butane at any hardware store, any place you can get these.
These little canisters, and let's show them kind of the nozzle on the top. So you You know what you're looking for. This is a universal fuel tip on this little butane canister.
Yeah.
And these are disposable little canisters of fuel. You can't really ship butane safely. It is a gas, it's combustible.
Yes.
So that's why you need to kind of buy it locally in your area. And they're just like a couple of bucks for a canister like this. It's not anything expensive.
No, that's a really nice thing about these is you can easily get them. They're easily accessible. But on that note, you do have to have ventilation, so we may as well mention that.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure you're well ventilated, whether you're working by a window or you get a hood or anything like that. Just make sure you're really ventilated when you work with butane.
Yeah, and I have a friend actually who solders under her kitchen hood, right? So, the oven hood you have in your kitchen can really work. If you've got a zone on that countertop close to your oven, that's a great way to start soldering safely. Make sure you're not breathing all these fumes, right?
That's a great point, yeah.
Protect yourself.
Absolutely. So all you would do is you take this nozzle tip right here and you would just insert it into the hole in the bottom. If you can see that, and it's simple, and that's how you refill it.
So as you push it in, you kind of hear that little hissing sound.
You'll hear it, and then it'll start coming out when it's full. So you just remove the nozzle.
Off you go.
It's very easy.
Okay, what else do we need?
All right, so also you have your Sparix, which is your pickling, and that will clean all the oxidization off your pieces after you're done soldering, and you need to clean it before each solder. So this is great.
So how do you use pickle, Erica?
So you use pickle with a crock pot. So you'll get a crock pot and you'll add water to it, and then read the instructions on the back of your Sparix or any of your pickling solution, because they'll all vary on how much you use. But you just use a tiny bit into your pickle. The thing with this is it is an acid, so you need to dispose of it correctly, which is adding baking soda to the solution before you get rid of it, before you pour it down your sink. So that's really important. You need to neutralize it.
You do, but sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say pickle lasts a long time, so it's not something that you need to do on a monthly basis.
Right. So if you have, you are going to want to dedicate a crock pot to this. Don't use a cooking crock pot and just rinse it out in between. You want a separate crock, and that's why we really recommend these mini crocks. You can get one at Halstead. You can get any kind of little hot pot crock pot at a household goods store.
Yep.
And dedicate it to your soldering. And then, like Erica said, you can leave your pickle aside for weeks, the same mix, without having to mix a fresh batch. So I was really nervous about pickle the first time I did it. I wanted to measure it very precisely, and then I was nervous about my measuring cups. You don't need to worry. It gives you a ratio in the instructions, but just shake a little in, stir it in, let it dissolve. It doesn't have to be super precise. So don't stress about that. Right?
Do not stress about it. And just don't ever touch, or like she said, never use this for food again. And if you're doing a patina, like with a liver or sulfur, you don't want to use this crock pot either. You'll want to get a separate one for that as well.
That's right.
Just to let you know.
Okay. So why do you need to pickle, though?
It'll clean your piece after you solder. So soldering's really dirty. And it'll bring if you're using silver, it's going to bring all the copper to the surface. It's going to be oxidized. And so you'll want to clean it, and it'll clean your piece right up in just minutes. You don't want to leave it overnight. Keep your eye on it, about 15 minutes tops, but just keep your eye on it until it's clean.
Okay. Now, why couldn't you just use soap and water?
That won't get it off.
I won't get it off.
No.
Right? So this is a different kind of cleaning.
Acid to clean it.
Yeah, this is a different kind of cleaning. After you've soldered, those residues, those patinas on the silver, you can't remove them without something like Sparix. So there are other options for pickle. You could use citric acid. Look online. There are alternative pickle products, but you need some sort of acidic pickle solution in this soldering process.
Yep.
Okay, great. What else? Let's move on.
So we also have copper tongs, which another thing is you only want to use copper tongs in your pickle solution. Because if you use steel, then it's going to plate everything with copper. So just make sure you only use copper tongs with your pickle.
It's one of those things that's tough to remember at first, but you get used to it really fast.
But as a learning area right here that we're in, we kind of put notes on our thing, copper tongs only on our crock pots, just so that people, if they're beginners or something, that they know too. Yeah. Because it will ruin your pieces. You'll take a long time finishing your pieces if they're plated with copper. No steel in your crock pot.
No steel in your crock pot. But you do need some steel tweezers for other reasons. So let's talk about these next. Here, this is a cross pair of tweezers with kind of a heat-resistant grip, so it doesn't conduct the heat and burn your fingers. And these are great for, holding pieces and moving hot metal, right?
Yes, and you can safely hold those while you solder. So it's really nice.
Right, so it keeps your hand far enough away from the torch that you're protected back here, but it gives you a tool to grip and move around what you're working on. Right. And you can also use tweezers, but these will heat up. So you can start with them, but you're going to need to be in and out a little faster.
Yeah,
right?
and I really use the tweezers to put pallion chips and bits of wire solder onto the pieces themselves. So they're great. They're really handy for a few things. So
cool. Now another alternative is a soldering pick. And I didn't really understand why you would want a pick when I first started soldering. So let's kind of talk about that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you want a soldering pick, and
let's show that.
This is
a soldering pick.
This is a soldering pick, and it does not come with the X299, but it's definitely something you'll want to purchase, because when you solder in your non-dominant hand. So I'm right-handed, so I would always have the torch in my non-dominant hand, my left hand, and I would hold the soldering pick in my right hand, because if something moves or adjusts, instinctively you want to reach out and you want to grab it, and a soldering pick protects you from using your hands to touch anything hot.
But this is also a really useful tool in the process. They only cost a few dollars, but it's surprising what you can do with just a pointed tip. This looks kind of like an ice pick, right?
Yeah.
It's just a pointed tip, but really it's enough to nudge around the items you're working on. And one of the cool things about solder is that when it's hot, it'll kind of stick to the tip of your soldering pick. So you can move around little bits of solder just by kind of touching them with your soldering pick and move them into place as you need to.
And that's called pick soldering.
That's called pick soldering. There you go. All these new terms, right?
Yeah.
Okay, what else do we have here?
Okay, so you also have paste. This comes with a kit, and this is solder paste, and it's also a combination of flux and binder, so it's really, go ahead.
It's not her favorite
solder
kind of solder. We do have blogs available on the different types of solder. Just as a quick overview, solder comes as a paste. It comes in little teeny tiny pieces called chips or pallions. You can get solder in wire, or you could get solder in sheet. Now, paste is a great way to start because it's kind of an all-in-one, like Erica said, with the flux already in there. If you're just learning, it keeps the process a little bit more simple. But paste can also be a little challenging to work with, so just keep that in mind.
So it definitely has its pros. I don't want to say anything. It's great for filigree work and stuff, and it's also good for if you're on the road and you want to, just have something simple to use as solder. This is perfect for on the road, correct? Because you don't have to have the flux on the side because it has it in it. So there are pros to it, trust me.
It has its place. But if you are getting into soldering, I definitely recommend also picking up a little bit of solder wire or solder chips. Because those, for certain jobs, are kind of the more appropriate choice. They're going to make the job easier.
Yeah, and this is a really good choice for jump rings, too, because it's fast and easy and quick. So, I mean, pros and cons to everything. I just personally like wire and chip.
We all have our opinions, right?
Yes.
We do.
But it does come with nozzles, so you can get different amounts out of it. So, that's good.
Right.
The shelf life's 1 year.
That's good to know.
So just to let you know, chips and wire and sheet do not have a shelf life, so.
That's true, they last forever. Now, if you're using paste solder, you don't need separate flux unless you want to kind of protect your whole piece. So as you're learning to solder, you'll kind of learn the ins and outs of fire scale. But if you're using any other kind of solder, wire, chips, or sheet, you definitely need flux. So let's talk about why this is important in soldering.
So flux is important because not only does it let your solder flow easily, like if your solder is not flowing, you've probably forgotten the flux. Honestly, that's probably the #1 reason. But also it's really great because it keeps oxidization off of your piece, so it protects it. And it's your friend. Flux is your friend. So I flux everything, and so...
Flux is your friend.
Flux is your friend.
I love that. We got to put that on a baseball hat or something.
I just like flux. It keeps your piece cleaner.
It does.
It does. It cleans it before you even use it.
Right. So you're still going to need to pickle, but it just makes that polishing and pickling so much faster and more efficient.
Yeah, it cuts time for sure.
It does. So, flux is in our starter kit, and it's definitely a necessary part of the process as well.
Now, the good thing about this handy flux that you get in the kit is it does come with a huge brush, which helps to put it on large pieces, so you can see the size of that brush is really good. And if it does dry out, all you need to do is add a little water, no problem. You might want to get a smaller brush if you have a tiny piece, and we just use a little paintbrush to brush it on.
Yeah.
So both brush sizes will work. really well.
So just a warning on Flux, one of the things that kind of took me off guard when I started is it's actually like a silica compound, correct?
Yes.
So it's almost like a layer of glass that you're temporarily adding to the process. So it's going to get on your soldering surfaces and kind of stick around them, and you kind of get this residue that builds up on your magnesia or your solderite board or whatever you're using. So it gets on there and it's okay. Like, you don't need to worry about, flaking it off or getting rid of it. It's going to be fine. And you'll notice, like, as you heat it later in subsequent soldering jobs, as it gets warm, it gets a little bit sticky. So, it'll be a little harder to move things around on the block by just nudging with your pick or your tweezers. If you've got a lot of flux buildup on your block, it's not going to hurt anything. But just be aware that it's kind of one of those things that, it starts to get in there. It starts to build up, and that's okay.
But Flux is so important too, because it'll start out white, and then once it melts, it'll like disappear, but that's when your piece is getting hot enough to almost flow the solder. And it will get on your titanium piece and kind of build up a residue on it, like she was saying. So I just use sandpaper to clean our picks here, and they last forever. Mm-hmm. So just use a little sandpaper to clean it up when you need to.
Okay, awesome. So if we move the Flux over here, I think everything's shown right now on the tile, and our tweezers and our tripod. All of these items are available in the X299 kit, correct?
Yeah, and it runs about $70 or $80. It's not an expensive kit, and it's really great to get started because you're just getting basically everything you need right now to start soldering.
But there are a few other things we would recommend you get as well. So let's really point those out separately so that we're clear.
Okay, so you want to get the pick.
Yep.
This is a titanium soldering pick, and you can find it online. That's definitely, I would say, absolutely something that you need. Of course, you'll need your butane to fill up your micro torch. A quench bowl of water, which we just use plastic containers here, and it works great. And this is just after you've pickled your piece, or before if you want to cool it down. You can put it in the water before you put it in the pickle, but after you use the pickle, you absolutely need to quench your piece and get the acid off. So a quench bowl is really, really important, and it can be any container. And of course, you'll need your crock pot for the acid. Mm-hmm. And another thing I suggest is definitely a third hand, because this will hold your piece still while you work. So if you just have it right here and you have your piece there, we use third hands 90% of the time.
They really are an indispensable tool. Like, the more you solder, the more you learn to love your third hand. Yeah. It's amazing. And the name really tells you exactly what it is, right? You've got your torch, you've got your pick. There's a lot going on. Sometimes you need something else to hold things in place or apply a little pressure. So this is your third hand, and it is invaluable in the studio.
Definitely invaluable. So
one other note while we were talking, I just realized on the crock pot, another question I had when I started was, what temperature? Does it need to be low? Does it need to be high? These little crock pots just operate at a single warming temperature. They don't have like a dial. But if you're using a different crock pot, the temperature is definitely ballpark as well. Like, there's not a precise temperature you need.
Yeah, we have a big studio one that we use when we have our classes going, and this one has up to 3 temperature settings, and second and third is kind of hot because it will boil. You don't want to do that. We just keep it always on 1.
Yep, just nice and low is plenty. Yeah. It's going to work great.
You just need it warm.
That's right. All right. Now, one other thing that you may want to get, and this is pretty optional. Do you want to show them the solderite board there?
Forgot all about it. The solderite board. We use these here in our studio, and this is heat reflective. So you just heat up the board, and it'll just bring the heat back up onto your piece.
So it makes it a little faster and easier to solder larger items, especially.
Yeah.
Now, again, to clarify, if you're using a tile, this is to protect your table, but you wouldn't want to solder directly on a tile. No. I know some people are tempted to do that just to save money on one less thing to buy, but these will crack if you apply heat to them directly. So whether you're using ceramic or stone, we definitely don't recommend using your torch straight on a tile. Use your magnesia, use your tripod, or use a solderite board. You have lots of options. And there are other things out there like honeycomb and charcoal blocks. You have lots of choices for soldering surfaces. They all have their pros and cons, but they're all going to work just fine.
Yeah, I agree. Don't use your tile.
Don't use your tile. That's a little dangerous.
Yeah, so all we would do here is we would just put down a solderite board. This is all we use at our studio here. And the magnesium block we can just put right there, and it builds kind of like a little container, like a little safe soldering area.
That's right. So you're kind of focusing in your heat. and allowing it to reflect back on a larger piece, which is really helpful. All right. Well, Erica, thank you so much for all this information. That was really helpful. For you watching this video at home, I want to point out that we really just focused on the tools today, but we have a lot of other resources available for you on the specifics excuse me, the specifics of how to solder, the process itself, and also more details on different types of solder and some troubleshooting tips. Yes. So definitely check out links to our other blog articles and videos available on halsteadbead.com.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And have a great time soldering. This is magical. You're going to love it.